Hello, it's Mark, and this is Java tutorial number 3, I think. And so here's what we're going to test out first here, or here's what we're going to try and do. um, I think first we're going to try and figure out how to get user input, and then second, I'm going to hope that we can try and figure out if-else statements and then switch statements, which are all pretty similar. So how you get user input is a little interesting. So what you need to do is create something called you do scanner, and then you create a name for it. Let's just call it scanner equals new scanner, and then what is it? System.in. I believe that's right, and then it'll probably ask us to import. Yes. Okay. So I'm not going to go over the specifics of how this works, mainly because a lot of what's going on in this line is a little complicated right now with what we know. But all you got to know is that doing what I did right here creates this little thing called a scanner, and we can use that to get user input now. So let's say, how about, let's create a prompt here. Type in a number. And then in order to get that, we would do scanner dot, and then let's just do scanner dot, yeah, we'll do scanner dot next line. And then this will give us a string. And then let's also print out that string. Or how about, yeah, we'll assign this to a variable. We'll be a little more simple here. We'll assign it to a variable first. So we'll call that variable, how about just A? Or how about let's properly name it, let's call it input. And then let's do system.out.println, and then we'll print out input. Or let's label it first. All right. And what's the warning it's giving here? Oh. Okay. Well, let's just try it. See what happens here. All right. And then it has to type in a number. We're going to say, and you see it puts it down at the bottom of the console. Oh, I said type in a number when I'm getting a string. Okay, well that's funny, whatever. Let's just type in 78. Yep, and then it tells us it back. Okay, so that's all I needed to show you first here. This is how you get input. This right here, this line. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go over the specifics of it yet because it's kind of a bit complicated. Here, I'll give a kind of brief idea of what it's doing. So the whole idea behind Java, C++, and like Python and all these languages, they're called object-oriented. And what that means is that you create these things called objects, and you do stuff with the objects. So what we're doing here, for those of you that might be familiar with object-oriented stuff, is we're creating a scanner object, and we're passing in system.in into the constructor, I think, and then we're running with that scanner object, we're running the function, or we're calling the function next line, which grabs the next line of user input and makes it into a string. So that's how that works. I know it might not make sense, but let's try and get this to do some stuff for us with if-else statements, which are a lot more simple and a lot easier to understand than this for a new person. But so all that an if-else statement does is, here, let me just type one out quick first. Just the skeleton for it. So it's a pretty simple idea. It tests for a condition, and if that condition's true, it does what's here. If it's not true, then it does what's in the else block. Now, what I mean by like it does the what's in the block or whatever, it does what's between these two curly braces. Just like with our functions and stuff, or the main thing, we have two curly braces, and that denotes what's inside of it, and then we have two curly braces for test. Same idea. Um, so let's just test. How about? And also, I'm gonna change this to something else because I don't want to get into another funky thing. Let's do next int, so then we're getting an int back. Oh, made a capital N on accident. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to test for, how about if the input we typed in is 5, let's say the input is 5. Let's just print that out. And then if the input's not 5, then we're just going to print out the input is not 5. Very simple. So how we test for whether a condition is true is we type in input double equals and then 5. Now, that might be a little weird seeing double equals, but in programming it makes a lot more sense. You see, here I'm just going to make like a little thing right here. All the different like logic operators that we're going to be using are double equals, oh, not equals, and then that one and that one. And then also bang and bang. Oh, yeah. And you might recognize these mostly from math. This is just, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or wait, maybe I'm reading those opposite, but you, you get the idea. Alligator eats the bigger one. And then not equal to, and then equals to. Now, the double equals might be the weirdest one to see when you first see it, but just understand that it's testing to see if this guy is true and this guy is true. Basically, you can think of it as like doing that gives you back a Boolean of whether or not these guys are both equal. So that's a general idea of how that works here. Well, just to clarify, let's keep coding here and then I'll change the stuff around to hopefully make more sense. Input is 5. So like I said, if we're going to test if the input's 5, we're just going to print that out. And then otherwise, let's just print out input is not 5. And then always make sure putting your semicolons at the end of each line there. Okay. And then run. And let's type in a number. Let's type in 4. Input is not 5. Wow, what a revelation. Okay. Now let's try it again. Let's type in a number, 5. Input is 5. Wonderful. Wonderful, right? Okay, very complicated. So now let's try playing around with some of the other operators here. Let's make it not equal to 5. And then we can actually just basically reverse these. This is kind of a silly way to do this. I think it'd be better to just do the else first, but that's that. Okay, type in a number. Let's type in 5. It should still work basically the same though, because I flipped the print statements. And then let's type in a number 4. Input is not 5. So you see now, it basically flipped them. Now let's try this one. So input is less than or equal to 5. So we'll say that here. Input is less than or equal to 5. And then that's kind of a lot to say, so I'll just say I'll just say no. The inverse of that obviously would be to put in input is not less than or equal to 5, but whatever. Let's just be simple here. And then let's just type in, how about when we type in 5, yep, you see it runs this one, and then let's run it again. Now let's say 4, it still should give the same thing because it's less than. Yep. And then let's type in 6, It's just no. So I hope this is a pretty simple idea. And then how you can add complexity to these things. Obviously, most of the time you're not just going to be testing for 2 conditions. You might be even testing for like 3 conditions, and that's where you get in else ifs. So then an else if would have its own thing, and then let's say maybe our else if is that here's how we're actually going to change it. Let's get rid of the equals, and then let's just say is equal to 5. And then we're going to say system.out.println input is equal to 5. And so how this is going to work now is basically in an if-else statement, it runs through each condition and tests them individually. So it'll test the top condition first, and then it tests this condition, and then if we had another if-else, it would test this, all the way until it gets to the else statement, which is just if none of the other ones were met. Now, how this one's going to work now is it's first going to test if the input we put in was less than 5, and then it'll say that. If the input was equal to 5, then it'll say input is equal to 5, and then if it wasn't any of that, then it'll just say no. So let's try this. Let's type in 3. Input is less than 5. Good. Then let's type in 5. Input is equal to 5. Great. And then let's just type in like 6. And it gives us back no. Okay. So I hope that's kind of simple. Now that's basically it with if-else statements. You can type in more into these things. Instead of just testing for 1 condition, you can say like input is less than 5 and how you do that would be 2 ampersands, and then you say like how about input is less than 5 and blah 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 is true and blah 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 is true. So you could make like a really really big condition and that whole thing has to be true, or quite literally you could do ors. And this is how you do like an or. So then I could say like if input is less than 5 or input is greater than 5. So basically if input is not 5, then do what's right between these 2 brackets. But that's a general gist. I'm not going to go over how to use these 2 as much because we don't really need to right now. And then the last thing I'd like to cover is just switch statements. So I personally don't use these as much, but they still have their use. And so what you want to do with these, I believe, let me just try and remember here. So you test for, it's kind of similar idea to how an if-else statement works, but it works a little bit differently. So where the if-else statement went through each individual one and tested each condition, this one works more like a sort of hash table in a way, if that kind of makes sense. And then so you have each individual case here. How about let's say like, I'm trying to remember how you write these. Yeah, okay, so it's happy with that. And then let's put in our switch thing will be the input, and then let's say this case is if input is equal to 7. And then let's make a few more cases. Let's make case 3. And so basically what we've done here is we've made a switch statement that tests quote unquote. If the input is equal to 7, it'll do stuff that's right here. So let's make it just print out input is 7. And then another interesting thing you need to do after these is you need to type in break at the end. I won't go into why you need to do that, but just know that. And then at the end of this one, let's just say input is 3, easy peasy, and say break. Now let's run it. And then we'll type in 7, input is 7, cool. Type in a number 3, input is 3. So it's a very similar idea. We have the input, and just so you don't get confused, I'm passing in a variable basically. And then that variable is this one right here. I'm passing an input into this function. And it's testing for each case that I have. And you can think of it functionally the same as an if-else statement. However, if you designing these things in certain ways, a switch statement would be faster than an if-else statement. And I won't go over why, but just know that. If you have like a really, really long chain of if-else statements, try to make that into a switch statement instead, because that will be faster, most likely. So that's that. And then, well, I think that's a good place to stop.